Welcome to the fourth video in the Simblee for Mobile tutorial series. In the last video, we created our first user interface application. Very simple UI, just text and switch, and now we are going to add some events to that. So when somebody touches the switch, when the user toggles the switch back and forth, something actually happens. And the best way to interface with the real world is always with an LED. That is what we have been taught since day one of embedded design. So we're going to define a pin for the LED. The Simblee module has, well, it's got up to 29 I/O. Our breakout only has 7, and pins 3, 4, and 5 are attached to LEDs using the shield that we have. So we're going to use pin 4 for our LED, which in this case is the blue channel of the RGB LED on that shield. And we are going to do some pin mode here, just like Arduino. This is absolutely the same. If you've been through the Simblee basics tutorials, you've done this so far. So all we're doing is setting up an LED as an output, and that will be pin 4 of our module. Now, the ability to handle the toggling of that switch is going to come down to that switch has an ID. When we do this right here, this function draw switch, it actually returns a 8-bit ID. So you can think of anything, 8 bits. It is something that we are going to have to capture when it returns, and we're going to have to save that. So we're going to save that as switch ID. Very original, but very clear. Switch ID. Now we didn't do this because the switch ID cannot be created inside of the UI function. The switch ID has to be created globally so that it can be handled between multiple functions. So we're going to go switch ID. And then when the user interface gets generated, which happens upon connection to the Simblee device, the switch ID, well, first we will draw a switch, and it will return the ID generated by the Simblee module to switch ID. Now that we have this, we can pass it, well, we won't pass it into, but we are going to use the UI event function down here to handle that. And that is going to get passed in using the Simblee for Mobile process. So when, as a user, you toggle the switch, Simblee for Mobile.process gets interrupted, it gets a callback, and it runs off and calls up the UI event function. And I did not add some necessary arguments into this. I've got to pull that up. Let's see. Yes, this needs event. Okay. So it's the data type of event underscore t. Obviously part of the library that we included. And in this case, we're going to use an if structure. And we're going to say if the event that gets called up has an ID and it is equal to our switch ID, then do something. And in this case, the something we want to do is turn our LED on, which is a digital ray. Now, we could say turn it on high. Okay. Well, what if we switch on the, we switch on the switch. We toggle the switch on. Well, that's an event, and it's going to call digital write LED high. Well, and then we toggle the switch off. Well, that's still an event, and it still has the ID switch ID, so digital write LED high is going to do nothing. It means that when we open the app, when we toggle the switch once, the LED is going to turn on, and then we can never turn it off again. Because every time we toggle the switch, it's just calling this same event. Now, the easiest way to handle this is to, instead of digital write high, we're going to do something that's really neat, a part of the event structure. And that is, we're going to write event.value to this LED. Now, every every element in our user interface, our switch, our text so far, they have value, they have an ID, they have a text, they have a position associated with them, and we can call on those throughout our code. So we can write, after we establish that the event ID is the switch ID, we know that the event value is the switch value. And inherent to the switch is the value 0 or 1. It returns that. It stores that value. If your switch is off, this event value, the switch value, is 0. And if the switch is on, the event value is 1. So all we're doing is we're writing to the LED the value of our switch. It's very simple. It makes a lot of the event handling with Simblee is very easy because of this event structure. So let's check our code, see if we made any mistakes. So it compiled fine, no errors or warnings. So there's no syntactic errors so far. So let's upload it. Upload success. So let's jump over to the camera and see what this looks like between the Simblee module and the phone. Okay, back at the phone, we've got the Simblee module at the top here, and let's open our Simblee app. Application pops up. We didn't change the device name or the advertising data, so it looks the exact same at this point. We click on it to open. Now here's where the magic should happen. When we hit this switch here, the blue LED should light up on the shield over here. So let's see if that works. There we go. Now, like I was trying to explain earlier, if we just had it digital write high on the event, the blue LED would never be able to turn off. But the way we wrote the code where the digital write is writing the value of the switch to the LED, in this case it's writing a 1 to the LED, now we can just turn it off and it writes a 0 to the LED. Great, so now we've seen the very beginnings of using our user interface with an event structure to actually interact with the world around us. Next, we're going to have multiple events to handle and have multiple reactions to those events.